If you think learning English still means, sitting in a silent classroom, staring at dusty textbooks, and just waiting years until you feel ready to speak, then you are, frankly, operating on a decade-old model.
Yeah, that model is completely broken.
We are right in the middle of a full-scale revolution in how we learn languages. It's totally redefining what fluency even means in today's world. So today we're doing a deep dive into this 2026 phenomenon known simply as speaking from day one.
And it's not just a concept anymore, is it? It's a real movement.
It's a real movement, yeah, and it's driven by data and some incredibly powerful personalized AI. We've pulled together a fantastic stack of sources for this, covering everything from evaluations of specific AI tutors to the deep psychology of speaking anxiety. Our mission today is pretty clear. We want to give you a concise, data-driven overview of why speaking early is the new standard, how the technology is making it possible, and what practical steps you can follow to really build your own confidence.
And that shift in standard is the critical starting point. I mean, for decades, the whole process was weighted toward grammatical perfection, avoiding that red pen.
Right.
But if you think about how we actually use language today, especially at work, that emphasis just doesn't make any sense anymore. As one of our sources, the Educa podcast, pointed out, we have AI co-pilots now that can instantly perfect your writing, an email, a report, anything. So the focus has moved entirely onto real-time spontaneous communication. The new priorities are spoken fluency, listening skills, and honestly, just the guts to engage.
It's not about being a walking grammar textbook anymore.
Not at all. The goal is to connect, to collaborate, and most importantly, just to be understood in the real world. That idea, utility over perfection, that's the engine driving this whole day one movement.
I love that framing. It's a total philosophical shift from passive knowledge to active utility. It admits that the biggest barrier for most people isn't the difference between past simple and present perfect.
No, it's the fear.
It's the paralyzing fear of just opening your mouth. But we have to ask, why is this trend exploding right now? I mean, it feels like we just crossed some major threshold where the technology finally caught up to what teachers have been saying for years. What was the accelerant?
The primary accelerant, without a doubt, is the level of sophistication we're now seeing in AI personalization.
Okay.
We are so far beyond the generic canned responses of early chatbots. We're talking about a highly responsive, a sophisticated co-pilot that makes learning incredibly efficient by diagnosing you in real time.
So how does that actually manifest in a learning app? What does that look like in practice for the listener? How does it know what I specifically need to work on when I start speaking on day one?
It's performing these constant, subtle diagnostics. As the English Learning Trends 2026 report noted, the AI creates what they call your linguistic fingerprint.
A linguistic fingerprint.
Yeah, and don't just think of it as a record of your mistakes. It's a precise map of your persistent weaknesses across all these different areas. By listening to your speech and reading your writing, it identifies these specific recurring error patterns. So, for instance, it might notice that you consistently mess up the sound.
Right, a common one.
A very common one. Or maybe you always misuse a few key prepositions. Or you struggle with word order. The AI doesn't just see a single error. It sees the pattern behind the errors.
So the AI is basically shouldering the burden of diagnosis. This removes that huge point of friction for the learner, that feeling of staring at a huge curriculum and thinking, what on earth should I study today?
Precisely. That decision paralysis is one of the biggest killers of consistency in learning.
I can see that.
The AI takes that burden completely off you by building a curriculum that adapts in real time, sometimes within minutes of a speaking session. It focuses only on the gaps you actually have, rather than making you review stuff you already know.
It's like personalized medicine for your brain.
That's a perfect way to put it. It gives you direction, it saves so much time, and it makes the whole process feel calmer and more focused.
And that real-time personalization, it leads us directly into the second major trend we saw in the sources, which is the rise of what's called micro-practice.
Yes.
We're moving away from those long, draining 90-minute night classes that, let's be honest, often led to guilt or burnout if you skipped one.
The micro-practice model is a behavioral game changer. It just acknowledges the reality that most learners today are busy people with fragmented attention spans. The philosophy is simple. Instead of one huge taxing session, you engage in these short, focused bursts throughout the day.
And that keeps the language alive in your brain.
Exactly. From a neurological perspective, that continuous engagement is vital.
Why is that?
It leverages the principle of spaced repetition, but in a functional, integrated way. If you only study English for 2 hours every Saturday, your brain spends the first half hour of the next session just trying to remember what you did last week.
Yeah, just warming up.
Just warming up. By sprinkling these little English sessions throughout the day, you reduce that retrieval lag and you keep those linguistic pathways warm and active.
Can you give us a few more specific examples? Like, how does someone actually implement this without disrupting their whole day?
Absolutely. Think about the 5 minutes you're waiting for a coffee. That's enough time to have the AI quiz you on those prepositional phrases it diagnosed earlier.
Okay.
Or you listen to a 3-minute English news summary on your commute, and your only goal is to find one new idiom. Or you could even record a quick 60-second voice note describing your lunch and have the AI give you feedback. These tiny actions accumulate into huge progress.
It just lowers the activation energy you need to start learning each day.
Completely.
And that focus on immediate utility brings us to this core data point that really seems to justify the day one approach. The 500-word minimum. This sounds almost too simple.
It's powerful because of its simplicity. And the data supports it. The research shows that if you focus intensely on mastering just 500 carefully chosen words, you can handle about 80% of basic functional communication needs.
80%. That's huge.
It's huge. It completely shifts the goalposts from memorizing the entire dictionary to just mastering a functional toolkit.
But I have to ask, how do we define carefully chosen? Is it the same 500 words for everyone? For a tech professional versus a tourist?
That's where the strategy comes in, and where personalization is key. The 500 words aren't just random nouns and verbs, they have to be strategic. For almost everyone, the list includes high-utility language, things like clarification requests.
Could you repeat that more slowly?
Exactly, or confirmation statements like, let me confirm what I understand. Basic connecting phrases that just structure a dialogue. But if you're a business professional, your 500 words will lean heavily on business fundamentals. Meeting language, project terms, negotiation phrases. The day one approach shifts your focus immediately to mastering those categories.
So if I focus on those 500 utility words, I can immediately unlock 80% communicative ability, even if I still confuse my perfect tenses.
Yes.
It transforms language learning from this passive academic exercise into an immediate functional survival skill.
And that gives you a massive psychological advantage. The learner can navigate real-world scenarios so much faster. They start speaking not with a dictionary of obscure words, but with a toolkit of essential phrases they know they're going to use, probably today. That's what lets you start immediately.
So moving from the practical to the emotional, we have to talk about the massive anxiety barrier. I mean, for generations of learners, speaking has consistently been the single most stressful skill.
It's the ultimate psychological roadblock, and it's so deeply rooted. I mean, public speaking anxiety is high enough even among native speakers. The research we looked at noted that 75% of computer science students face significant anxiety.
75%. Wow.
But when you add that layer of communicating in a language you're still learning, it raises what linguists call the affective filter.
The affective filter. Okay.
Think of it like a mental firewall. When fear or embarrassment is high, this firewall goes up, and it actively stops new language from getting to the parts of the brain where learning happens. Fear literally stops learning in its tracks.
That's a great analogy. And the fears themselves are so powerful, right? The study showed 74% of students fear their mind going blank, and 80% fear visibly showing signs of anxiety, like trembling.
Right. For a beginner, the fear of making a mistake in front of a teacher or a peer, it's crippling.
So if the affective filter is the wall, how does AI tear it down?
That is where AI has its biggest psychological breakthrough. AI serves as the perfectly non-judgmental practice partner. It completely solves that roadblock of needing to find someone who is available 24/7 and is also completely non-critical.
You can't bore it. You can't annoy it.
Exactly. The sources highlight the value of infinite low-stakes repetition. A human tutor would be bored to tears if you practiced ordering a coffee 100 times. The AI. It's happy to help you. It's a tireless, patient sparring partner.
So you can face a tough mock job interview or practice a difficult conversation.
All without the fear of failure or embarrassment.
It's the safe space to fail. And failing is how we learn.
Yeah.
If I try a complex sentence and get it wrong, the AI instantly corrects me, but there's no social cost, no judgment, no eye roll.
Exactly. It's a game changer because it allows the learner to take those crucial communicative risks in a completely safe environment. You move past the fear of the mistake and you just focus on the communicative act itself.
This also brings us to some really exciting developments in immersive tech, specifically VR platforms. I mean, it's one thing to chat with an AI on your phone, but VR is taking this to a whole new level.
We're moving into the realm of the conversational flight simulator. Platforms like Immerse, which were highlighted in our sources, they transport learners into these authentic, repeatable environments.
So it's embodied practice.
It's embodied practice, which is so important for memory. Think about the difference. On your phone, you might memorize the sentence, "I need to check my baggage." In VR, you are standing at the virtual airport counter. You have to look the clock in the eye. You're dealing with the noise, the pressure of the moment.
You're acting it out.
You're acting out a complex social transactional script.
And that word repeatable is key here, isn't it? If you mess up your dialogue at the virtual airport, you can just instantly reset the scenario and try again.
And that repetition is how you build conversational resilience. It's not just intellectual, it's kinesthetic. These experiences allow learners to practice communicative risk-taking in a zero-stakes environment. You're building muscle memory for the entire social situation.
Which would dramatically increase your confidence in the real world.
Absolutely. You learn to speak not just the words, but the body language and the social timing that go with them.
So VR and AI together, they provide the repetition and the context to get past that anxiety phase. They basically inoculate you against the fear of failure.
That's the core takeaway. The anxiety barrier is actively dismantled before the learner ever has to speak to another human.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and where we need to dig into the data. We need to dissect the actual performance of these AI tutors because there's a huge difference, as our sources show, between the specialized apps and the big general-purpose LLMs like ChatGPT.
Yeah, the recent evaluation study on AI conversational tutors gives us some fantastic granular data. They looked at 4 specialized tutors, we'll just call them T1 through T4, and compared them to T5, which was ChatGPT, and T6, Gemini.
Let's start with the specialized tutors. What were the key design patterns that defined their approach?
Well, they were all designed around specific pedagogical needs. They were optimized for mobile use, they set up personalized study plans, and they all offered different conversational modes like free chat or role play.
Okay.
But the major distinction and the most revealing finding was in their correction styles and their overall verbosity. Basically, how much they talked back to the learner.
Let's talk about that verbosity because the numbers are pretty stark. T1, Talkio, that was the talker, right?
By far. T1, Talkio, was the most verbose, averaging about 107 words per turn. Now, imagine a conversation where you say 3 sentences, and the tutor responds with a dense paragraph over 100 words long.
Wow. What was in that paragraph?
Everything. An appraisal of your response, remarks on your errors, a suggestion for rephrasing, and then a follow-up question, all bundled together.
So what's the implication of that? Does all that guidance actually help, or does it hurt?
It can be overwhelming. While the feedback is comprehensive, the sheer volume of text can lead to information overload. The learner might struggle to identify the single most important thing to focus on.
And they might start to rely too much on the AI to structure their thoughts.
Exactly. It can feel less like an authentic conversation and more like a heavily guided lesson.
So now, contrast that with T2, TalkBall. This app took the total opposite approach.
The complete opposite. T2 is the most concise, averaging only about 29 words per turn. And it used a really effective gamification element. A green sign next to your speech meant no mistakes. A yellow sign meant there was an error.
And the learner decides when to see the correction.
That's the crucial part. The learner could choose when to click the yellow sign for the explanation. This is empowering. It gives you agency. You can focus on communication and flow first, and then circle back to the mechanics later.
That feels like a much better balance for building confidence. Now, what about the quality of the feedback itself?
So here, T3, Univerbal, and T4, Lengua, they really excelled. They focused on synthesis and review. Both apps let you download a comprehensive feedback document after the session with an annotated transcript of the chat.
That's incredibly useful.
It is. T4, in particular, was praised for being very supportive, often focusing on the logic of the learner's argument, not just the linguistic mistakes. It was coaching the whole communication package.
And how did these specialized apps handle communication breakdowns?
Yeah.
You know, when learner just stops mid-sentence.
T1, T2, and T4 were generally excellent at repairing those breakdowns. So if a learner paused, T4 might respond with something like, "Would you like to finish your thought about autonomous cars?"
It keeps the conversation going.
It keeps it going, and it reassures the learner. But we did note that T3 was much stricter. It was rigid on time limits and often failed to acknowledge breakdowns, which can be really discouraging for a beginner.
Okay, now let's bring in the big players. The general LLMs, T5, ChatGPT, and T6 Gemini. How did they stack up as language tutors?
The conversation itself felt extremely fluid and natural with them. T5 ChatGPT specifically scored very high in the quality evaluations, sometimes even outperforming the specialized tools on things like value of feedback and supportive style.
But if they're so supportive and fluent, why do the specialized apps even exist? What's the catch?
The catch is a massive critical limitation: transcript reliability. While the conversation felt great in the moment, when the voice chat finished, parts of the conversation were often just missing from the transcript in both T5 and
Oh,
T6.
that's a huge problem.
It's a deal breaker for systematic learning. If your goal is to build a second brain of your corrected errors and you can't trust the record of your conversation, then the tool fails as a study aid. The lack of a reliable record is a significant drawback for the general LLMs.
So the specialized apps are better at the learning part, the logging, the pedagogy, while the general LLMs are great for just conversational practice.
That's a good summary.
But this raises a huge question. If ChatGPT scores so highly on being supportive and fluent, why should anyone bother with a human teacher anymore? Are they truly indispensable now that AI handles the mechanics?
That is the essential question of this whole revolution, and the answer is a huge, resounding yes.
Hmm.
The human teacher's role has just fundamentally shifted. They are no longer the sage on the stage.
They're the guide on the side.
Exactly. The AI handles the mechanics, the grammar, the diagnostics. The human handles the art of communication.
What are the specific, complex skills that an AI just can't touch?
There are several key areas. First, motivation and accountability. That personal human push is just irreplaceable. Second, coaching on complex, nuanced skills like high-stakes debate or negotiation.
Right. Things that require emotional intelligence.
Absolutely. And third, and this is critical, explaining crucial cultural context. An AI can correct your grammar instantly, but only a human can explain why a grammatically correct phrase you used is actually rude or culturally inappropriate in that specific context.
That's the feedback you can't get from a machine.
That feedback on tone, delivery, and social appropriateness is what makes communication truly effective. The human teacher is the cultural bridge builder. Their role has been elevated to being a high-level communicative strategist.
So based on all these trends, we can build a really actionable roadmap for beginners. And one of the most interesting tools we saw for developing spontaneous speech was this just a minute or jam concept.
The Jam game format, adapted for an AI app, is a fantastic model. The game challenges you to speak fluently on a topic for 60 seconds without 3 critical errors: hesitation, repetition, or deviation.
The genius is that it specifically punishes disfluency, which is what beginners struggle with the most. When you're nervous, you just fill silence with noise.
Precisely. The hesitation rule explicitly targets those dreaded filled pauses like the study on a jam-based app showed really promising results in reducing them.
So this gives content creators and educators a massive opportunity here. If the trend is to reduce these verbal crutches, what's the immediate tip for them?
The tip is to create content that encourages using silent pauses as an intentional alternative to filler words. Silent pauses actually improve clarity and give everyone more time to process information.
We think any pause is a failure.
We do. But the best speakers actually pause more frequently and for longer. Creators should make videos that distinguish between a bad filler word and a powerful rhetorical pause. That's a huge gap in online content right now.
That's a phenomenal tip.
Right.
Replace the nervous with intentional, confident silence. That immediately improves how credible you sound.
It does. And beyond the speaking mechanics, the reports also highlighted how important it is for a learner to organize their materials. There's a strong visual element here.
Right. The brain remembers images faster than text.
Dramatically faster. Learners should actively seek out visuals to anchor abstract concepts.
So if I'm learning an idiom, I shouldn't just write down the meaning. I should ask the AI to generate an image that represents it.
Absolutely. Don't just memorize to break the ice. Ask your AI for a specific image prompt. Show 2 people hesitantly cracking a huge block of ice in a meeting room. It makes the concept concrete and easy to retrieve.
And the final organizational strategy is the second brain system, which sounds technical, but is really just about maximizing momentum.
It's about structure and discipline. Learners have to start treating their materials like random screenshots or scattered notes. You need to build a structured, centralized system, a second brain, that keeps everything organized.
So let's give the listener a practical breakdown. What are the essential files for this second brain in week 1?
You need 4 crucial active files starting on day 1.
Okay, what's number one?
1. The active vocabulary list. New words go in here instantly with a visual image or prompt.
Number two.
The corrected writing file. Every time the AI corrects a sentence you wrote or spoke, that perfect version goes immediately into this file. It builds a library of perfect models based on your actual mistakes.
Three.
Grammar notes, but in your own words. Don't just copy the rule, rephrase it. It forces you to actually understand it.
Yeah, the last one.
A simple practice log. A list of the high-utility tasks you need to practice, like your 500-word phrases or VR scenarios. The key strategy is instant filing. This system reduces friction and drastically accelerates your momentum.
You know, what stands out here is that this entire revolution is fundamentally about reducing friction and minimizing fear. AI isn't a replacement for human connection. It's an indispensable support structure for high-frequency, low-stakes practice.
Yeah, it handles the heavy lifting of correction and diagnosis, which frees the learner up to do the one thing that actually matters for fluency.
Which is just speaking constantly. This entire deep dive into speaking from day one brings us back to one of the most foundational theories of language acquisition, the comprehensible output hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
It basically states that learning doesn't happen when you passively receive information. It happens when you encounter a gap in your knowledge. And the act of producing language, the output, is what makes you notice that gap.
That is the core realization that defines fluency in 2026. Speaking is not a reward you get after years of study. It is the primary engine for progress. And that output serves 3 essential functions, all supported by modern AI.
What are they?
First, the noticing function. That's when you try to say a word and realize you don't know it, forcing you to look it up. Second, the hypothesis testing function, where you try a new grammar rule and the AI gives you instant feedback.
And the third?
The meta-linguistic function. That's where you reflect on the language you just used and file the corrected version into your second brain.
And the beauty of the AI revolution is that it just minimizes the cost and the discomfort of that essential output step.
Exactly. The modern learning environment has effectively eliminated the embarrassment factor and the time delay of the old classroom model. The AI removes the judgment.
So let's wrap this up for the listener. If AI can instantly personalize your curriculum, diagnose your errors, correct your mistakes in real time, and give you a detailed log to file in your second brain, what is the real remaining challenge for the learner?
Well, the goal is no longer to be the perfect student. The goal is to be the fearless communicator. Given the power of these tools to manage all the mechanics, the only true challenge left is the human one.
Which is?
Cultivating the courage to fail confidently. That is the key to mastering English in the modern era. Find your voice on day 1 and the learning will follow.